In the year 2000, Airbus launched the most ambitious commercial aircraft program in history. Double-deck, full-length, onboard bars, shower suites, 550 seats. They called it the A380, and they genuinely believed it would define the next 50 years of aviation. They were wrong, and the company most responsible for killing it, they nearly destroyed themselves doing it. This is the story of how Boeing won the future and almost didn't survive being right. In the late 1990s, Boeing and Airbus were staring at the same data. Air traffic was surging, airports were running out of capacity, and the industry agreed something had to change. Yet both companies arrived at completely opposite conclusions. Airbus said the future was bigger planes. Boeing said smaller. Both wagered tens of billions of dollars on being right. One of them was catastrophically wrong. Boeing's answer was the 777, a twin-engine widebody that proceeded to dismantle Airbus's best long-haul offering, the A340. The numbers tell the story plainly. The A340 had 4 engines, the 777 had 2, similar passenger loads, similar distances, but the 777 burned significantly less fuel doing it. 377 of the A340s were sold by Airbus over its entire production run. Boeing has sold more than 2,200 777s, a 6-to-1 beatdown. What makes this remarkable is that 20 years earlier, Boeing couldn't have built the 777 for long-haul service, not because the technology didn't exist, but because it was illegal. Aviation regulators enforced what was known as the 60-minute rule. Twin-engine aircraft couldn't fly more than 60 minutes from the nearest airport. The logic was simple. If one engine fails over the ocean, you need to reach land before the other one fails too. Long overwater and intercontinental routes legally required 3 or 4 engines. That's why the 747 existed. That's why Airbus built the A340 with 4 engines. It wasn't a design preference. It was a regulatory requirement. Engine reliability kept improving. In 1985, the FAA revised its rules and authorized the first long-haul overwater flight by a twin-engine aircraft, a 767 from Boston to Paris. It burned 7,000 pounds less fuel per hour than the 3-engine plane it replaced. Airlines noticed immediately. The threshold kept expanding, 120 minutes, then 180, then 330. By the mid-2000s, a twin-engine aircraft could legally fly any route on Earth that a 4-engine aircraft could. The entire regulatory justification for 3+ engine long-haul flights had simply ceased to exist. So Airbus watched the A340 get systematically outcompeted by a twin-engine rival. And even then, it decided to build an even larger 4-engine aircraft. Before Airbus committed $25 billion to the A380, Boeing had attempted something nearly identical. In 1996, Boeing unveiled the 747X, a stretched double-deck derivative capable of carrying over 650 passengers. Airlines said they were interested. They just wouldn't sign orders. Boeing killed the project in early 2001. The forecast suggested maybe 70 to 80 aircraft over 9 years, against a development cost exceeding $5 billion. The math didn't work. Boeing walked away. Airbus watched all of that happen and launched the A380 anyway. December 2000. Budget £9.5 billion, 50 firm orders from 6 airlines. They positioned it not as a derivative, but as something entirely new. Double-deck, the full length, onboard bars, lounges, shower suites. They sold to the most prestigious carriers first. Emirates signed on. Singapore Airlines followed. Qantas committed. The economic argument was real. 15 to 20% lower cost per seat than the 747. 1 aircraft replacing 2 on the same route, using 1 airport slot instead of 2. Meanwhile, Boeing was failing their way toward the right answer. On the same day they canceled the 747X, they unveiled the Sonic Cruiser, a futuristic near-supersonic concept carrying around 225 passengers, the opposite of the A380 in every way. Then September 11th happened, aviation collapsed, Airlines lost $13 billion in 2001 and another $11 billion the year after. Nobody cared about speed anymore. Efficiency was the only metric that mattered. Boeing canceled the Sonic Cruiser in December 2002, but they didn't abandon what they had learned. Every technology developed for it, carbon fiber composites, next-generation engine architecture, advanced avionics, got redirected into an entirely different aircraft. Not fast, efficient, not oversized, right-sized. They called it the 787 Dreamliner. 200 to 300 passengers, 20% better fuel efficiency than anything in its class, designed to connect cities directly rather than funneling everyone through congested hub airports. In 2004, ANA signed on as the launch customer with 50 orders. The plane that would ultimately doom the A380 was now in development. The A380's problems were compounding before it ever left the ground. Around 2000, Airbus had asked GE and Rolls-Royce directly if significantly more efficient engines were on the way. Both said no. Nothing meaningful on the horizon. 3 years later, before a single A380 had entered service, both announced new engines delivering 15% better fuel efficiency. Those engines were going on Boeing's Dreamliner. The A380 hadn't carried a single revenue passenger, and its propulsion technology was already a generation behind. Then oil prices surged from $50 a barrel in 2003 to $147 by 2008. Operating 4 engines at those prices was punishing. Cancellations began stacking up. And when Singapore Airlines retired its first A380s after just 10 years, nobody wanted them. They were scrapped. Due to its sheer size, only about 20 airports worldwide can even handle the aircraft. There was simply no secondary market. If the A380 was failing for nearly every airline that operated it, one question demands an answer. Why then did Emirates keep ordering? Because Emirates isn't a conventional carrier. They have one hub, Dubai, and their entire model is built around routing passengers from every corner of the globe through that single airport. Dubai sits roughly equidistant between Europe and East Asia, hours from Africa, closely connected to the Indian subcontinent. When your whole business is maximizing throughput at one hub, a 500-seat aircraft makes strategic sense. At peak, Emirates was operating 8 A380 flights a day to London Heathrow alone. And Emirates had the scale to unlock the economics that destroyed every other operator. Sir Tim Clark didn't buy 10 A380s. He bought 123, nearly half of every A380 ever built. At that volume, maintenance costs decrease, crew training standardizes, supply chains become efficient. Every problem that crushed 10 aircraft operators simply doesn't exist at 100. But that concentration was also the program's fatal vulnerability. One airline accounted for nearly half of all orders. When Emirates stopped ordering, there was no one else. The A380 didn't have a customer base, it had Emirates, and that turned out to be the same thing as having a single point of failure. Boeing was right about the future, smaller, efficient, point-to-point twins, and the market proved it by a factor of nearly 10 to 1. But Boeing nearly destroyed itself building the 787. It entered service 3 years late, its batteries caught fire, the entire global fleet was grounded for a while in 2013, and Boeing has spent $32 billion on the program without yet breaking even. Airbus misread the future entirely. The A380 will stand as one of the most expensive strategic miscalculations in modern industrial history. Yet Airbus survived because the A350, the aircraft they were reluctant to develop and initially dismissed as unnecessary, became one of the most commercially successful wide-body jets ever produced. The A350 has received over 1,500 orders. The A380 received 251. Boeing correctly predicted the future and nearly went bankrupt building it. Airbus got the future wrong and survived because their own customers forced them to build the right plane anyway. The A380 didn't fail because it was a bad aircraft. Passengers who flew it genuinely loved it. Emirates will keep theirs flying well into the 2030s. It failed because the world it was designed for never fully materialized, and by the time that became obvious, $25 billion was already spent. That's the brutal math of big aviation bets. Being right isn't enough. You have to be right at the right time for the right airlines. Boeing was mostly right, and it almost finished them anyway. There you have it, how Boeing killed the A380 and almost itself in the process. Drop a comment below. Did you ever fly the A380? I want to know what you thought about the experience. And if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe for more stories like this one. Hit the thumbs up button, and I'll see you next time on The Plane Window.